Hey there, adventurers! Have you been struggling with PbtA games powered by the apocalypse and wrapping your head around the various moves like I have? Well, you are not alone, even if you're trying to solo it. Because we're going to talk about it. I'm struggling, we're all struggling, I've got a lot to get off my mind. Let's go! Alright, so my name is Sacred with Sacred Art of Gaming, where we discuss gaming. We talk about things that are not just Dungeons and Dragons. We like to talk about things that inspire our games. We like to talk about aspects of our games. We like to talk about solo games. If that's your jam, stick around and let's talk about PbtA powered by the apocalypse style games and why you might be struggling and why I am struggling, why we're all struggling. Let's go. So number one, I'm numbering it like I've numbered this video. I haven't. The Power by the Apocalypse system is heavily based on moves. That can be good. That absolutely can be good. But man, let me tell you, when you're used to like the typical D&D, Savage Worlds, Dragonbane, basic fantasy, any OSR, any like Fate, like anything, Dragon Age, any other system, pretty much, oh, I want to do a thing. Do I have a skill or an attribute that is tied to said thing? I do. Okay, let me see if I can do it, unless it's just so ridiculous that of course I can do it or of course I can't do it. If there's even a chance that I can do it, I look on my character sheet to see something that's tied to it in some way, and I roll them bones. But you know what? Powered by the Apocalypse does not do that, and there are some pros and cons to the move system. I'm gonna start with the cons, because I'm feeling like a negative Nancy today. How I feel about the move system is that it is hard to get into, even as someone who has learned it multiple times. But if I step away from it and I play something else or do anything else with my life other than that, I have to relearn the system every time. And that's probably in part to my biases to what games I started with. But to say that the system is like a rules-light narrative system, that's like kind of true, but kind of not. Because I feel like I gotta break down the system every time I'm about to play it because it's just so foreign and different. I don't even feel like all of them are the same. Like the moves are different in every different system that they have. There may be some similarities and some overlap, and if you've got some tips or tricks, you're very familiar with PbtA games, feel free to put them in the comments down below. I would love to know. I'm sure others would love to know based on what I've seen on the interwebs. Plenty of people are feeling this way. If you're not familiar with the move system, it's pretty much like a trigger. And what they're trying to accomplish with this is that they don't want you to do the very thing that I just described. They don't want you to like look, oh, I want to jump from here to there and I know that I'm, very acrobatic or athletic, so that's why I'm gonna do that thing. So here's my skill, athletic or acrobatic, whatever. I know I've got a +5 to it. Let's do that thing. Hey, I did the thing, surprise. They don't want you rolling all the time, and when you do roll, they want it to be meaningful. And when you are going to roll, it then is tied to a move, and that move, oftentimes, will have like 3 scenarios. You've failed, you've succeeded with some type of consequence, or you have succeeded with no consequence, generally speaking, right? And I do like that, especially with something like Ironsworn. I feel like this really kind of excels in like a solo environment because then you don't need as many additional like oracles and stuff. But what I find happens with me and others is that you know that you're doing the same thing that you would with something like D&D or Savage Worlds. Oh, I want to jump. I know that's tied to athletics. And then you start to, you and or the GM are then looking for moves. You're like, how can I make one of the moves tied to this? And I know what's gonna happen, and feel free to do it anyways, but I'm sure you're thinking, feel free to put it in the comments, that, well, you shouldn't be trying to think in terms of moves. That kind of defeats the purpose. You should just be describing what you want to do, and then if it is tied to a move, then so be it. And I hear you, I do. But I can't undo what I already know. So much so that if I don't play any tabletop game for a very long time, and I go to play, I don't want to say D&D, I go to play Dragonbait, I'll pick it up fairly easy. I'll just have to be like, oh shit, that's right, I need to roll under, not roll over. Okay, got it. But with this, it's like, whoa, I need to look at all of the moves and figure this shit out. And if you're wondering what spurred this on, I did recently post the deal for Magpie Games. I agonized for 24 to 48 hours over the purchase of Avatar Legends. And I was so excited because it was actually a pretty solid sale. I was like, wow, for 50 bucks I can get this sweet ass D6 and the core book and really get rolling. And the more I looked into it, the more I was kind of like, I don't know if this is something that I need right now. Especially when something like Element Sworn exists for Iron Sworn as a hack. Maybe I'll try that first and go from there. That's kind of where I landed. I'm trying to be a little more careful with my time and my resources right now. So that's where I landed. That's what landed me here. Got a lot of thoughts on PbtA games. So that's supposed to drive the story forward, and it does. It does do that effectively. As someone who loves Ironsworn, it does do that. But if you said, hey Sacred, you haven't played Ironsworn in a while, sit down and play some Ironsworn. Just play. No books, no, just, you know, go with your gut and see what happens. I would be lost. I would be so lost. I would kind of vaguely remember that, oh yes, I know that there's something for setting up camp, and I know there's something for, you know, doing a ranged attack versus a melee attack, and I know there's something for like travel. It gets a little weird if you do it every time you go from point A to point B, so then in what instance are you even doing it, and then what are the consequences for each one? You really need to reference those things. As opposed to if I were just gonna roll up basic fantasy right now, I look at the attributes and I'd be like, okay, I'm gonna roll the dice and I'm trying to hit this dude. I have an idea. I have an idea and I get it. Maybe if you've come from a PbtA background and that's where you started, maybe things would be different. But I don't know anyone in that situation. Not a single person in real life anyways. I'm sure if I went to the Discord for PbtA, yes, those people probably do exist. But outside of that, I can't find them. So this is supposed to be like a narrative, rules-light game, so you're kind of missing rules in some other areas, and then the rules that you don't necessarily want to be complicated are complicated, which is really just like how you figure out your action. Man, I'm so indifferent about it because I'll be honest with you, I want to love it. I really do, because I understand how powerful it is for solo gaming, dealing with Ironsworn, Starforged. But man, yeah, it's tough. It's tough. What do you guys do to get around this? Let me know. I think something that probably would help if I were ever in this position, which I have not been, but if you had a GM who is very PbtA skilled and they facilitated everything for you, I bet that feels amazing. I bet it does. Because then they would basically say like, oh, you're trying to do this thing. I'm gonna determine for you when that's an issue and when it isn't, and then I'll just let you know, oh, you rolled this is what you do. But I mean, even then, I feel I can't help but put myself in the position of the GM who then feels tied to this card that says this is what you gotta do. Ah, man. I say this like I have no PbtA games. I have Dungeon World. Blades in the Dark is also inspired by it. I think Blades in the Dark is kind of on a weird, it's not as bad with those things. So this is all about the story-driven, this is all about the player-driven storytelling and just the more than just combat. And the players, they're expected to contribute significantly, which I think can, man, that's gonna make that a tough sell for, hey, we're gonna learn this new game, I need you to drive it. That's, I'm getting anxiety just thinking about trying to introduce that to a new group. And I mean, you may have rock star players that can take it and run with it, but they need something to get that motor revved up, you know? How is this video helpful to anyone other than me venting and ranting to my frustrations over a somewhat small purchase? What you and I both need to do is overcome the learning curve. And this is how. So this may be obvious, but maybe not. Start with a one-shot. Get an idea of what your players are into, what you're into. Is this something that is even feasible? I know I've definitely taken something like Blades in the Dark to a group that is more 5th edition averse, and it was really hard for them to wrap their head around the mechanics of it because they wanna roll dice. Hey, let's do the thing, let's roll dice. No, 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 no. Rolling dice, I don't want to say is bad, but like bad things can happen to you when you roll those dice. So in a weird way, you almost want to roll the dice less because there's a good chance that like bad things will happen to you. So focus on the fiction first. The fiction is what should drive everything else. And that's kind of what PbtA is all about. That's their whole thing. And I want to believe that is true. And I have experienced it being true, but it takes, I gotta really get into that mindset. I gotta really sit down, look at the moves. I gotta play for a little bit, especially with something like Ironsworn, and then it starts to click and we start to get moving and we're good. But it does take effort as opposed to some other systems. Don't be afraid to make mistakes. Honestly, just roll with it. The tabletop gaming police are not gonna kick in your door and say, wait a second, hey, you there, are you playing Powered by the Apocalypse wrong? All right, boys, let's go. Wrap them up. We found another one. So PbtA, at its core, it's gonna be all about exploration and storytelling, and let that thing happen. It's not about defeating enemies. Avatar Legends, as far as I can tell, is all about dealing with your internal balance. The things that happen during some type of confrontation. Sometimes it's not even a physical confrontation, but sometimes they just walk away feeling like depressed because of the back and forth Avatar / anime style of the things they were saying and also the fighting at the same time. The words sometimes cut deeper than the fireballs. So that's my rant about PbtA games. That's why it's kind of tough to get into. That's why I'm desperately looking for a hero to jump into the comments and say, all you gotta do is this. And then it'll be very clear to everyone. Oh my god, yeah, why didn't we just do that this whole time? Let's all play PbtA games, this is great. But until that happens, try a one-shot. Give it a shot, go through the book. There are free like quick starts and Ironsworn, which is also free, so that you can try it before you invest. Because inflation is real and we don't want to be wasting money on things we don't like. So this has been Sacred with the Sacred Art of Gaming. I hope you enjoyed this video, especially if you've made it this far. Feel free to like, comment, and subscribe if you're digging the vibes here. I'm gonna talk about things that I have and things that I want and things that happen. That's really what this is all about, am I right? So once again, thanks for watching, means the world to me. This has been Sacred, signing out.